Recently, I've been hearing the following questions quite a bit. What do I do if I haven't drawn for a while and I kind of feel blocked? Or what do I do if I feel like I don't have any desire to draw and no motivation? These are two very important questions that address the same thing, and I'm going to talk about this in this video today. Before we start chatting, my name is Carolin and I used to teach hundreds of students at top art colleges in California, and now I run my online art studio called CURA Studios, where I help lapsed artists reconnect to their creative voice by using classical drawing. If that sounds like it might be you as well, stay connected, hit the subscribe button, and for today, grab a cup of coffee or tea so we can chat. First, let me start by saying that your loss of desire to draw or create doesn't mean you're not a real artist, or that you're doing something wrong. Even in regular, non-pandemic times, it's normal to go through phases of feeling disconnected from your creative drive. There are always times when you feel inspired to create and to do something, and phases when you're just feeling drained. But in our 24/7 go, go, go culture, we're made to feel like something is terribly wrong if we're in the more drained part of the creative cycle. So rather than stressing out about having to fix this with a ruthless 5-minute hack, here are 5 things that I do when I'm not quite feeling like a creativity machine. First, we want to begin by naming the mental and the emotional state that we're in. By naming that something is currently off, we're acknowledging that we might need different expectations for now. Just how there's a sliding scale for how fit we are physically, from being super athletic and trained like a pro to being moderately fit to being physically unwell and sick. There's a same sliding scale for our mental and emotional well-being, going from being happy and resilient to being okay to being languishing and to being even depressed. And just how if we're not physically fit like an athlete, it would be ridiculous for us to expect to be competing on that level. The same is true for us when we're thinking about our mental well-being. We shouldn't expect to be super creative if we're actually mentally and emotionally languishing or even depressed. So we can't really create well when we're languishing, and by naming that something is off right now, that's a necessary starting point. So how do we recover so we can eventually draw again? Which leads me to point number 2. Come up with things that you know make you feel good. Recently, I've been working on this painting commission and it put me into a very uninspired place. I just did not want to work on this painting. So I needed to come up with some strategies that made me want to go paint. So what did I do? I cleaned up my studio. I made it really pretty to be in there. I bought myself some brand new brushes. I downloaded some of my favorite authors' books who I know will make me laugh out loud every single time when I listen to their stuff. So those things made it much easier to go to the studio. It made me look forward to getting to listen to the next chapter in my audiobook. It didn't necessarily make me want to paint more, but it was nice to be in the studio like this. And depending where you're at currently, you don't necessarily need to tie this to drawing at this point. Just think of things that you know make you feel good and do those things at the times when you usually would draw. You can go on a hike, you can garden, you can play games with your friends, you can listen to an interesting podcast, watch a funny movie. When you are creatively languishing, this is not the time to ask something of your creativity. Instead, this is the time to feed your creative well. Surround yourself with art, however low or highbrow. Watch an art documentary, look through your art books, take in what delights you. And of course, if you're on the more depressed side of the spectrum, I highly encourage you to get help from a professional therapist, because there's nothing like having a pro in your corner helping you out. And don't feel bad about that for 1 minute. Number 3, get moving. Research has shown that physical movement isn't just good for your body, but also for our minds. And if you're thinking, well, what does that have to do with art? Hear me out. In the early days of the pandemic, I was really struggling too, and that's when I started an early morning walk routine. And even though the main motivation is to get moving, I also always bring a small pocket-sized sketchbook with me, not with the intention to necessarily go out and draw, but to have it handy in case something strikes me as interesting. A thought might come in, a visual might call out to me, and when I have my little sketchbook with me, I can just pull it out and note it down so it doesn't just flit away right away again. And by doing that, you're reconnecting with what makes you you. what is interesting to you. And that too restores that inner creative well that you might have been draining. Everything gets drained and gets rebuilt, right? And so we want to rebuild with something that's authentic to us. And when we're walking, we drop our guard. We don't have all of our to-dos and I'm supposed to thoughts with us. And that is when our true self can talk to us again. By the way, if you're finding any of these tips interesting so far, you might want to become a CURA Studios insider. When you sign up for my weekly newsletter, you get motivational and inspiring emails directly into your inbox that can help you stay connected to your drawing habit. And you get a welcome present as well, like this little workbook over here with 3 questions that can help you figure out how to make your drawings better right away. Okay, on to the next tip. Number 4, begin with something that you just love to draw. When you're getting to a place where you're feeling that flickering thought of, I might want to pick up a pencil again, begin with subject matter that you just always love to look at. For me, that is animals. Anytime I don't know what to draw, I feel uninspired, I go to places like Pixabay where I can get high quality images. I pick the most beautiful one and I get going with that. And I even like to set a timer for myself so I know it's just a short, manageable section of time where I get to draw my favorite thing. And even if drawing the things that you usually love to draw don't feel interesting to you, or the thought of drawing just still doesn't intrigue you, don't push it. Instead, think about something else you can do that's creative that you do at the times you would usually draw. So for example, you can knit, you can play with clay, you can use your paints and just smear them around without any pressure. That's what I used to do when I was really blocked. Just smear my favorite colors around and get myself moving for a certain amount of time. What I learned from my friend and therapist is that creativity begets creativity. So the more we move our hands, the more we try and play with something tangible, the more that wants to come out of us again. But if we keep pushing in the same way, in the same direction we always have, especially when we're feeling blocked, we're not going to solve anything. So by shifting to a different discipline like clay and knitting and baking, whatever it may be for you, we're not really avoiding our creative block, but we're tricking our brain to keep moving forward. And by keep moving forward, we keep tapping into a different side of our creativity that will then eventually lead us back to where we want to go next. We're basically trying to figure out what is it that's interesting to us right now. We change all the time, right? Just because you like drawing horses 2 weeks ago and that was the best thing ever doesn't mean that it's true for you where you're at right now. So ditch what you're used to and play around with something wild and different without any expectations. Just how physical activity gets us to drop down our guard, so does doing something that we do just for its own sake. Something that's like play. In his book Play, Dr. Stuart Brown makes a strong case for the importance of pleasurable and apparently purposeless activities, which is his definition for play. And he speaks about the unexpected serious consequences that occur when play is being neglected. So try and be more playful in your creative endeavors. Number 5, last tip, get clear about your creative North Star. As we wrap this up, the last thing I want you to think about is what is it that you really like about drawing? Think about a satisfying creative moment that you had recently or a long time ago. What is it that you liked so much about that? I actually want you to take some notes on this. Write down what was it that's so satisfying about being creative to you. Make that your North Star. Often we put way too many expectations on our art. We want every drawing to look good. We want it to be portfolio worthy. We want it to help us get hired for that dream job. That is asking a lot, especially in moments when we feel burned out and blocked from art. This is not what we want to do. So instead, we want to balance this with regenerative practices like we just talked about. What was your answer to why you like drawing so much? Maybe it's because you like to illustrate stories that you come up with. Maybe it's you like the sound that your pencil makes on paper. It puts you into a meditative place. Maybe it's just you like drawing cool things, like the way it looks. Just that in itself is alone. Remember these answers. They're your delights, and our delights are the most precious things we have in life. So think about how can you nurture this insight? Like, How can you remember more easily what delights you about drawing? You can maybe make a visual reminder out of it, like a poster. Maybe you can make a verbal mantra that you repeat to yourself every day. Whatever it is, hold on to it for dear life. So the question, what can I do that reminds me of my love for drawing, is a really, really good one. So set aside the worries about the future when you're being blocked. It's burdening your creativity too much, and it's going to ruin the best thing that you have in your life. It doesn't mean that we cannot be professional artists who have high expectations of our craft and who know that we need to have a certain rhythm and discipline for our craft. But when we're blocked, it's not the right time to keep pushing like this. That is the right time to remember why we love what it is that we do, why we love being creative. So let me know which one of these tips resonated the most for you. What has gotten you into a creative funk in the past, and how did you get back out of it? I want to hear about this. Share it in the comments below. So I hope after our chat you decide to become a CURA Studios Insider as well, and that I get to see you in your inbox and in the next video. See you then.